We continue the shir in Sichos HaRan, saying that Arizal Siman Kuf Lamed Gimel, paragraph 133. If you recall, the section in Sichos HaRan now deals with statements that refer to the Likutei Moharan, to the Torahs, the chapters of the Likutei Moharan. This next paragraph of Nosson in this sefer refers to Torah Samach Tes, the Likutei Moharan, chapter 69, Likutei Moharan, where Arizal speaks about a topic that is of extreme importance to everyone, discussing the mitzvahs bein Adam l'chaverei, mitzvahs to pertain from one person to the next, honesty in dealing with the Jew, honesty to avoid taking any money illegally from another person. Isa Gezela. Arizal prefaces this statement with the facts. The fact that a husband and wife, when they are merged, they are actually one single neshama. It is one soul. Before they are married, they are both half of a soul, half of an organism. And before they are born, or at the time of conception, there is an announcement made in heaven, Bas Pleni LaPleni, this girl, the daughter of this man, shall marry this certain person, this man. Eventually, that time will come, they will be married. As Lady Kodesh says, it's not just by chance. We don't pick the names out of a hat. Because these two, this male and female, originally in heaven were one neshama. That neshama was bisected, divided in two parts, sent down to earth, and destined to meet again, fated to meet, and to be married on earth. So there's no way you can get rid of yours. You can't just dump them. You're stuck with them for life. Afterwards, now, the hereafter, learn to acclimate yourself and make the best of it. Now, we are dealing with souls. On earth, these souls are cloaked in bodies. They are enveloped and wrapped in a body. But even though they now possess bodies, the soul still remains the same. So Arizal says in these two souls, or these two partial souls, we know that every person has also different parts of the soul. There's a nefesh, a ruach, a neshama. They all mean soul, spirit, soul. But there are different levels, one higher and one slightly lower. The nefesh is the regular soul, and the neshama is the higher level. The zachor and the keva, spiritually, the spiritual degree, the ratio, the zachor is the neshama, and the nekeva is the nefesh. Now note, Arizal says, that there's another item that also is synonymous with nefesh. That part of the soul called nefesh is a second item which seems unrelated, and yet it is fact that the origin of money, simple money, cash, loot, originates, its origin, its shadish, its roots are in heaven, the very same place, same spot where the nefesh comes from. Does it mean that it comes from the same root, from the same location, the same room? Not necessarily. It comes from the very same item. In fact, it is the same. The nefesh is the money. Ki adam hu nefesh. The posek says the blood. Where is the nefesh in the blood? The word damim means money. So therefore, since the nefesh and the mumin are the same, soul and money are alike, when the Gemara says, when the voice in heaven comes out and says, Bas Pleni LaPleni, this woman shall be married to this man, means therefore that it means this money shall become this man's property. Which money? Does a man have money of his own? The answer is he does not. not 1 cent. So every man is a pauper in complete furthest degree. Where does a man get money from? His wife. She doles out the money to him. But a man goes to work, he struggles, he stays up nights while the wife relaxes in bed doing nothing, and she gives him the money? The answer is yes. Fact. Without the wife, he has no money at all. All the earning power that he has comes from the nefesh, which is the wife. Therefore, Mendel says that we look at it this way. When the Gemara says a kiruv and shaychu, give respect to your wife, in order that you become wealthy. The more respect you show your wife, the more wealth you will have. Which means, as you respect your wife, you bring forth a radiance to the neshama, to the nefesh, and from this radiance comes forth the shefa of money. So the more you give to this nefesh, to the wife, to this poor soul, the more you receive in return in the form of earnings or money, which really comes from her. Now this, the Arizal compares to the case of a tree. There is a tree, the trunk of the tree is the main part of the tree, the body of the tree, that is the wife itself. The tree has branches and also fruit that grows from these branches. Now, the branches are branches coming from this tree, from this woman, are the amounts of money that this woman has. This woman is gifted with, which a person can receive through the tree. Marrying this woman, he receives this money. The fruit that grows on these branches, that is the children that the woman gives birth to. So when a man marries a woman, she presents him with money and with children. Of course, this cannot be seen physically. You don't see a woman give her husband a check every week or upon marriage. This is the spiritual sense, but it is fact. It is the Sichos of this woman that a man receives the money through her possession, through the number of branches this tree has. In other words, how much Sichos the woman herself has. She cannot give more than she has. So there's a time when a man is, to a degree, less wealthy despite his efforts. It's because that's the amount that the woman possesses, or the shortage of respect he shows to his wife. Either one of the two is the reason for the man's lack of wealth. At the same time, we note, the man says, we note that there are branches and fruit of this tree. These two go together also. Money and children. Both come from the wife. Now, the man says the point of all this is to tell us, to reveal an awesome item, sort of a frightening thing. Fact, a person steals someone else's money that is rightfully the other party's, he takes it away illegally, then in effect he could be stealing the children of that party, of the victim, because the fruit grows on these branches. The fruit is dependent upon these branches, nourishment through the branches, and therefore by stealing someone's money, he could be taking away that person's children. This could be done in two ways. Either by stealing someone's money, he could chas v'sholem cause the death of that man's children, or he could cause the prevention of that man having children, chas v'sholem. The woman will not be able to give birth because the money was stolen, taken away from her husband. This is fact. And this shows then that a person who steals his friend's money is guilty not just of taking away the money, but also of stealing that person's children. And this, Arizal shows the proof from psukim, sentences in the Torah. We see that when Yaakov Avinu called his wives Leah and Rachel out to the field to discuss the fact that he no longer felt himself welcome in the house of Lavan, his father-in-law, and therefore he suggested that they leave. And they replied to Yaakov Avinu, fine, we agree. And they said, because all the wealth that Hashem gave us, Lanu Hu Olavanenu, it's ours and our children's, which means that the wealth comes from us, the wives, and the children. They go together. It comes from the wife upon whom depends the money and the children. This we see from their statement, because otherwise the sentence is not comprehensible. Secondly, the Gemara says clearly that Gemara Baba Kama, Gezel es chavedai ki ilu gezel mimenu nefesh bonav of neisav. Gemara is a person who steals from his friend. It is as though he's stealing the life of his sons and daughters. This is a Gemara. It's not Kabbalah. So of course, as the Zohar Kodesh says, in the words of Gemara there is always hidden the secrets of Kabbalah. Because the simple statement means, simply translated, we take it at face value, it means the one who steals from his friend is taking away the lives of his children, because the man has no longer an opportunity to feed his children. Simple translation, pshat. The hidden meaning there is that he's actually stealing the lives of his children, because once the branch, the money is gone, the children can actually die, or they can be prevented from being born. So therefore the Arizal says that for one thing there is this as a result. As a result, a person by stealing could actually hurt the victim's offspring. Secondly, to go further, Arizal says too, that in effect he is also harming the person's wife. Because by stealing this person's money, the branches, he may draw the wife away from the victim too. Which means that that too may be lost to the victim. It means also therefore that by stealing, by desiring the money of his friend, he is committing the isur of adultery. He's also drawing the wife, subconsciously the wife of his friend too, away from his friend. So we note how this pyramid, a simple act like stealing a few cents or a few dollars, could mean chas v'sholom murder of children, could mean adultery. All is because of the isur of gezela. Stealing can result in such tragic, major crimes. Now, the Arizal says in this Torah, and this is when we come to the Sichos HaRan. Arizal quotes the Gemara Bava Kama, which says, the Mishnah which says that Hagezel es chavedai shave pruta. A person steals from his friend even 1 penny, yilichenu acharav afilu lamodai, and he should seek to return this stolen money even to Modai, which means a very, very distant land. If the victim has traveled, has departed and gone to a distant land of Modai, Medaya, then the thief, the gazlan, should take this money, even this penny, and travel to this distant to return it to him. Of course, the statement is very difficult to understand. There's very little commentary on it, because why would the Gemara, the Mishnah, say, return the money even to Modai? What does that got to do with this topic of victim? Why go to such extent? Arizal says the interpretation there is that we find in the words of the posek, v'chol bonayach limudei Hashem. Limudai is a term used for children. Al pi Kabbalah, the bonim are called netzach v'hoid, limudei Hashem. what a branch is. That branch can be one single cent upon which rests these children. The fruit comes from this thin branch. So he has to return, afilu lamodai, to return this money, especially by which he's returning the children to the victim. That's the hidden meaning in this Mishnah. Arizal says that Arizal mentioned that this interpretation of the Mishnah, interesting interpretation, an unusual one. A person who steals should return to the victim, even the children. This interpretation Arizal heard himself. Where did he learn it? In a yeshiva, special yeshiva in heaven. Arizal, of course, visited the heavens. In heaven there are many different yeshivas, different levels. There, one of the hidden yeshivas, which is not revealed, the one is not revealed, but one which Arizal could frequent, that's when Arizal heard this interpretation, in which he brought to earth with him. We're very blessed to have reports shir, as was told in the heavenly yeshiva, revealed to us on earth. But of course we point out very strongly that this interpretation brought down from heaven is the one item Rabbi Arizal quoted. The other items are revelations through Rabbi Arizal's own greatness. Rabbi Arizal says again and again, V'dah. V'dah means, and I hereby notify you something which is above these yeshivas, because V'dah, as is acknowledged, is a message from Elam HaAtzilus. It is called like a cablegram from Elam HaAtzilus, the world above the heavenly throne. These statements that are so awesome were revealed by Arizal himself. But in this Torah, this one statement, this one interpretation, Arizal said he heard in the heavenly yeshiva. So this is a wonderful combination, this shir and Torah Samach Tes. Now the next statement, Arizal refers to Torah Ayin Reish Hey Elikutei Manan, chapter 275, the first Chelik Manan, where in that Torah Arizal says, begins with the word Da. Again, Da, which means we just received the cablegram, that every mitzvah that a person does, from that mitzvah there is created a candle. This we know from a posek. Ner mitzvah b'Torah oil. Ner mitzvah, a mitzvah creates a candle. But the Arizal says what happens to these mitzvahs, to these candles, when a person is nistalik, when he passes away, if he is good, if he is deserving, if he merits it, in the eyes of Hashem, then this person is granted the privilege in heaven to go through the heavenly storeroom, the heavenly treasures, and there with the aid of this candle to search in through the heavenly treasures and to pick out for himself whatever treasures he prefers, with which to spend his time for the rest of eternity in Gan Eden, the enjoyment of these treasures. It's a very thrilling experience, but a person can do this only with the aid of a candle. Now we know, for example, that we speak about also a timely item, b'dikas chametz. When a person goes to search for chametz, it says, we must seek out, search out, ferret out a chametz with the assistance of a candle. No other light or torch is not allowed, because the best item for searching in the far recesses, in the corners, the darkest corners, is a candle. Now here too, the candle of a mitzvah is used to search out the treasures in heaven. And this, the Menachem shows again from a posek. Posek says, La mesim chafshi. The dead are free. The Gemara says, Kivon shemeis adam, as soon as a person dies, Na'aseh chafshi min ha-mitzvahs. He is free, he is exempt from performing mitzvahs. The word chafshi, spelled chipus, which means search. Kivon shemeis odom, Arizal interprets, the person dies, na'aseh chipus min ha-mitzvahs. There is a search created. He is enabled to search in the mitzvahs which he performed during his lifetime, because these now become candles with which he can search for the treasures in heaven. But the Menachem says that tzadik emes, who is mace, who doesn't die later, he dies during his lifetime, which means that he absents himself, he abstains many of the pleasures of life, and devotes himself entirely to the spiritual. It is as though he has already died. This tzaddik, actually during his lifetime, he is given the privilege of searching in the heavenly treasures while he is alive. With this we can understand when we say always that a tzaddik has the right, has the power of visiting heaven during his lifetime. Of course, he has these mitzvahs that are candles, which enable him during his lifetime, since he's considered in a sense physically dead. So he can now, during his lifetime, he can now continue to search, the search in heaven, even before his passing. In the Sichos HaRan, the Arizal elaborates a little more on this chapter, this technical Kutub. Arizal says that when we say that these candles are lights, these mitzvahs are candles that can be used in the heavenly treasure room, what type of candles are they? Depending upon the mitzvahs that a person performs. There is a person who can have a candle or sufficient candles to search for just 1 hour. Person has more mitzvahs, more credits, his candles could last for a few hours. There are some whose candles could last for days, according to the number of mitzvahs that he has. So naturally, even the person who has the smallest amount, with a candle that lasts just for a few minutes, there are enough treasures to find in the heavenly Eitzah, HaMelech, the treasury of the king, to last the person a lifetime or an eternity, to really live a blissful existence in Gan Eden, in paradise, without question. But the more a person has to pick, to select from, the more treasures that he takes, the greater the degree of pleasure we'll have in Gan Eden. Now imagine though, as we said, a person who is zecher to more has enough candles to search with for days. But there is a tzaddik whose mitzvahs are so great that he attaches himself to Hashem during his lifetime. His mitzvahs take on an aspect of eternity too. So he has candles that can never be extinguished. The tzaddik emes can go into the treasury storeroom and there to continue to search endlessly during his lifetime and after his lifetime too. After his passing, tzaddikim yelchom echayel al choyel, they continue to go through the treasures of heaven, always continuing to search out, to bring out novel ideas, novel treasures from the treasury of heaven. And this, of course, is understood as far as the tzaddik emes is concerned. But now try to imagine the benefit of those who are attached to such a tzaddik emes. Understand now why the Arizal says that a person, if he had true sense, would know, would realize that even if a person does have a Rebbe who is a tzaddik, how much better off he is if he has a Rebbe who is the tzaddik emes. The person should spend a lifetime searching for the greatest of all treasures. Spend a lifetime till you are zecher to find the tzaddik emes. How beneficial this is afterwards, because the treasures that a tzaddik emes finds and continues to find, he shares with his talmidim. So how wonderful it is to sit back, relax, let the tzadikim go into the treasury of Hashem and bring out these stores of treasures. This, of course, depends upon the sincerity of a person's emunah, sincerity of a person's true implicit faith, and the test that he must go through for this faith. Of course, these tests are not simple, because the Satan will bend every effort, will let everyone else go, will desert everything in order to devote all his time to attack the belief in the credibility in the tzadikim. He'll do everything possible. He'll create untold numbers of friction, skepticism among outsiders, attacks by other people who will pretend to be as religious, as great believers, and bring about controversy against the tzadikim by bringing about friction among tzadikim themselves. We find a lot of times there are machlekes between tzadikim, inner turmoil, outer sources. All this is done in order to hide the true light, the kedusha of the tzadikim. This is the soil, the test that a person must go through. Because if a person does attach himself to the tzadikim, he will inevitably find that he's going to be attacked by outsiders. He'll be ridiculed, he'll be belittled, and he'll be ostracized in a sense until he finds himself weakening, chas v'sholom, and saying, well, might as well join the majority. At least you're free from all this criticism. Or stay away from this minority, this few. Why go to a minyan where you have just a few? If you can go to a big shul, you have hundreds. Or why go to a group where there are a limited number of talmidim? You can go to a place, to a sect, where there are thousands of talmidim, thousands of them. And of course, these are arguments that could draw away a weak mind. One who is strong, one who is steadfast in the emunah says, nothing can take me away. Nothing, because my belief is such that I will live with it, die with it, and live forever with it afterwards. That person who has that kind of belief is one who has no fear afterward, because the greatest problem Arizal brings elsewhere when a person passes away is that the first test he has after passing away again is a test in his faith in the tzadikim. Because it is known naturally that if his faith is solid, that he is safe there. So when he comes there to the heavenly court, again he finds the critics, heavenly critics, who try to draw him away and to bring about a disproof or doubts, fill his mind and heart with doubts as to whether he did right. If he remains stolid, he doesn't surrender his faith, and if he wins out on this test, then he is safe forever. So each person should think clearly, carefully in his mind how important it is to remain during this short period of life. Life is very short. To remain solidly despite any antagonism or any adversity you may have. It's not enjoyable, of course, to be criticized constantly, but the ultimate reward is such that it repays manyfold. So all those who criticize will have to pay a price for it. And it's simply understood. The worst price is the embarrassment afterwards. One who seconded the neshamas when they spoke against Rahman al-Islam. So Ashreinu, in that we were zecher to find the tzadikim, be emes, we should be zecher to remain solidly forever. Rabbi Arizal says in Teda Kuftes, referring to Teda Kuftes, Rabbi Arizal spoke to a person who felt very distant from a sincerity in religion. He felt himself slipping. This happens to many. Of course, it's not a bad sign. It's not bad when a person feels badly that he's slipping. He feels that he's weakening. He's not doing as good as he should. The real tragedy is when a person stops feeling that, chas v'sholem. That means that his heart has stopped beating, his spiritual heart. When he stops feeling that he's doing bad, that's a sign of a gesis, one who's about to pass away. As long as he feels he's doing badly, he feels that he's weakening, he's slipping, that's a sign at least that he's alive, he's vibrant. He can pull himself up. Of course, it means that he is having yeridas. He is falling away, he is wandering, he's straying. The question is how to save himself. So one of Rabbi Arizal's Talmidim once came and bemoaned this fact to Rabbi Arizal. He felt very badly. He's suffering with this painful thought that he tried hard to improve himself, to be more religious, to learn more, to daven better, but he found a lethargy, sort of a laziness, and he felt himself slipping away. What can he do about this? Rabbi Arizal said, and that's what this Torah is based on, Torah Kuf Tes, Rabbi Arizal said there is a key. When a person finds himself slipping away, there are two chains. And nobody can escape these two chains, one of the two chains. A person is either chained to the path of goodness, or he is chained to the path, meaning the origin, the mocha, the root of evil. One of the two. There's no in between. A Jew lives either doing a mitzvah or committing a sin. Even if he's asleep, he's doing good or bad. Even if he doesn't speak, he's either doing a mitzvah or he's abstaining from doing one. Especially if he does an actual sin, chas v'sholem, then it's understood. Now, by a person doing a sin, chas v'sholem, he becomes chained, tied to this rope or chain of evil. By a person doing a mitzvah, he becomes chained to the one of goodness. It is possible for a person to be drawn from one to the other momentarily. Doing a mitzvah, he swings over to the mitzvah side. The sin swings to the evil side. And of course, one of them, depending upon the average amount of mitzvahs or sins that he does, one of these has a more powerful hold upon him. Now, if a person feels himself slipping, doing wrong, then he should know that this chain of evil, held by the Satan means the Malach HaMaves, the Sahara, evil forces, the Klipos in heaven, to which he has attached himself. This is a very destructive type of chain. How can a person break that chain and become attached simultaneously to the chain of goodness? There is one eitzah the Rebbe has already revealed, and that is the eitzah of Anocha. Anocha means to sigh. A person takes a deep breath, the sigh of oi, a Jewish krechts. Yiddish is called a krechts. Oi. This oi, if it is a sincere one, a person pauses, thinks, where am I? What am I doing? How can I do this to myself, to my neshama? How can I allow myself to stray, to wander away from my true goal, and to attach myself to taivas, to evil desires, to sins? He thinks about it, he takes a deep breath, and he goes, oi. That oi, Rabbeinu says, with that he actually severs his connection with this chain of evil, and is immediately taken up by the chain of goodness. A person who concentrates very deeply will find, tested, the time when he feels himself thinking bad thoughts. Do this with sincerity, this oi, and he'll find that he has actually broken that hold over himself. If there's a heat of desire for sin, that sigh, he'll find, has cooled off that heat. This is actual and physical. This is the power of Anocha. Now the Gemara in Chassidut says also that Anocha sheveris. Anocha can actually break a person physically. It can break half of his body, whole body. Anocha, a sigh, can actually break a person physically, which means it weakens him, according to the Gemara. Here it means to break him away from where he is, and to attach him anew to the chain of goodness. This is why you will find that in Shemon Esrei, on the Breslov or in Tefillah in general, especially in Esteemed, the Arizal's followers have the custom of that oi. Sometimes in thinking and meditation, they come out with a very deep-throated oi. Some of them have built-in PA systems, and this, you can hear this roar through the whole yeshiva. And Arizal especially, you get some with that oi where the building actually rocks. Now I once heard this, we could mention this, the Menachem Shlita. Menachem, of course, is the essence of purity, of sincerity, of mimas, tzadikim of today. He once told, frankly, about an experience that he himself had. Of course, he was always a tzadik before his marriage too. He spent his life in Uman, Nida ben Azalcian, Kedusha, Betana. He went for a shidduch. There was a recommendation for a shidduch, and of course a shidduch means he went to the house of a certain important member of the community, a Talmud Chacham, Bas Talmud Chacham. He came to this house, and there he spent the evening speaking to the potential father of the Kala, potential father-in-law, and then this was in a strange city, so they gave him a room to sleep in. He went to this room and he had his benedis, and subconsciously, without thinking, he just let out with an oi, without realizing that others are listening too. But when a person is that sincere, it is such a deep, heartfelt sigh. It comes so deeply from the heart, as though the whole person is just broken up. The next morning, he was told in very clear terms to leave. We don't want somebody who's sick for a chassid. They felt that this came from a sick person, such a sigh, thing like that. He must be ill, and there was no way he could convince them, because had he explained the real reason, there would have been much worse. So he decided to remain silent, and of course, Baruch Hashem, it turned out for the best, naturally. But this is the advantage of anacha. Anacha is sighing, and of course, again, while we're on the topic, we want to bring out a certain item which is very controversial, discussed a lot in Eretz, because this was a deep discussion in Uman, Ben Azal's shul in Uman. The sighing and the other types of noise making during davening by those who mean well. Of course, there's a sign, the krechs and the oy and the loud, the clapping and so forth. All these are fine, they are advisable. Ben Azal said that this should be done. However, the question is, should this be done to extremes where it might interfere with someone else's kavanas? A person who's davening, his mind is deeply absorbed in business during his davening, he doesn't want to be disturbed. Or even, let's say, those few who daven with true kavanah, and then they really put their heart into the tefillah, and suddenly they're awakened with a shock because somebody gave out a scream, and it disrupts their train of thought. Those, of course, who have heard this will understand. Those who haven't couldn't get the picture in its true sense. Now, there was this case, a true case in Uman, where Shimshon Zal, during the time of Lev Zal, this was during the year. Lev Zal was there, the head of the Shoshana. Shimshon Zal during the year was looked up to as the leader, and In the front of the shul, there was one person, Talmud, who davened with what was known as Meshuna Dikikolis. Very strange type of sounds. There's various types of oi and screams and motions and movements and noises, but ones that simply made it impossible for anyone else in the shul to concentrate on davening. And this man stood right next to Reb Shimshon Zal. So the people, the Talmidim, came to Reb Shimshon Zal and asked him, how do you stand it? Why don't you tell him to stop? Do something. So his reply was, this is the story as told. His reply was, he disturbs me as much as he disturbs you, definitely, but I'm afraid to say a word to him, because what if he is really sincere? All those sounds come sincerely from the depth of his heart. How would I dare to go and to stop a person of Tmimus? You never know what's valuable in the eyes of Hashem. There are stories in the Talmud of Arizal where a shepherd who made strange sounds and whistling, he served Hashem with a whistle, or who made strange statements, but in the eyes of Hashem it was precious because it was with sincerity. This was worth more than the biggest tzaddik's type of tefillas. How can I take a chance to stop him if he has possibly such deep sincerity with these strange sounds he makes? Strange cries, wild cries. This is the story, and therefore he refused to stop him. There's this point that we once asked about. We wouldn't doubt the veracity of the story. We have a kasha on it. This kasha I've mentioned in Israel, and I haven't heard attendance for it yet. In other words, should there exist a person today who will decide to take that path and take up the cudgel with these strange noises, and we have a message for that person. If, the point is, if, as was stated, the possibility that that person's cries are due to a true sincerity on his part, true kavanah, he really means it sincerely, and not because he wants to be ostentatious, to show off, to show a superiority, or to say, look at me, how good I am, but he means it sincerely as a means of communication with Hashem by having the cry come from the depth of his soul. If that is the truth, then let that person answer this question. If you really mean it that sincerely, in all sincerity, in goodness and in modesty, then why do you feel that your davening is worth more in the eyes of heaven than the tefillos of all the rest of the people in the shul whom you are depriving from davening? If you're really that sincere, then you will gear your sincerity towards helping others, towards cooperating with others too. Let others daven also. Others too are sincere. So not to be selfish in that your sincerity outweighs and outshines and is worth more than all the rest of the people combined. So if that person is sincere, then it would pay to have told him about this, and to have asked him to cooperate, to sympathize with others too. In any event, of course, that was an exceptional case. There are a number of exceptional cases today that you saw too. I don't know how sincere they are, but they surely are as noisy. And that is why, to this day, we have never advocated going literally wild with noises and ois, but surely when a person has hesbodedus, the anocha, the sigh, could definitely help him to tear himself away from the force of evil, from tumah, become miksha, bound to the chevel, the rope, the chain of kedusha, of holiness. This anocha should come from the depth of the soul, should be loud and clear, so loud that it should travel not just across the room, but across the entire length and breadth of the world. Arizal taught us a person can scream, that the voice can travel throughout the entire width, entire area of the earth up to heaven without being heard by anyone else. It's something that can be controlled, contained within the person, a scream within the person's mind alone, not to leave the person's mind. You can hear it in your mind. It has the very same effect as though it came from the throat without hurting anyone else. This is the koyach of anacha, with which a person can truly disattach himself from tumah and klipa, attach himself to kedusha. And this again is totally in the advice of the tzadik emes and emunah. We should be zecher to be emes, fulfill these words of advice of Rabbi Arizal, to follow this sagacious advice and be truly attached emes, b'tmimus, to the tzadik emes, and thereby be zecher to toiv of these eitzes tovos. The ultimate toiv is seeing with our eyes the